Italians handed what is widely viewed as a victory to the populist five-star movement in Sunday's constitutional referendum. Prime Minister Matteo Renzi has resigned. What does this mean for the future of the country? I'm Femi Oke.
I'm Malika Bilan, and you're in the stream.
Marcin Zaborowski, Director of the Center for European Policy Analysis. I'm in the stream.
On Sunday, Italians voted against changing their 70-year-old constitution. The proposed reforms were an attempt by Prime Minister Renzi to centralise power and streamline lawmaking. But the vote was about more than just the reforms. The results are seen as a clear rejection of political elites and the Prime Minister himself. The anti-Euro populist five-star movement stand to gain the most from the vote, led by comedian Beppe Grillo, who spearheaded the No campaign.
So we asked Italians in our community what the vote meant for them. Here's what they told us.
I am Carlo Menta. I'm a business economics professor at the University of Palermo. I think that even if it is true that Italy needs a lot of very important structural reforms, one of the main factors that has blocked all these reforms during the last 30 years has been political instability. The constitutional reform is trying to address this issue by bringing more efficiency.
Hello, my name is Adriano Romano. I am a company manager here in Rome, and I am member of the National Committee for the No at the constitutional referendum. Just as the large majority of Italian citizens, I voted no at this referendum as we felt our fundamental rights were at stake.
Hi everybody, my name is Francesco Armillei and I'm a 20-year-old Italian student. I voted for the reform to be passed because I firmly believe that this referendum for Italy is a real opportunity for a better future.
It was an historical, unforgettable night for Italy because millions of Italians defended the popular sovereignty.
Well, at the president's request, Prime Minister Renzi has agreed to stay on temporarily, but it's still to be determined if fresh elections will be called or when a caretaker government will be formed. One thing is sure, Italians voted against the establishment, as we've seen in other recent elections. So what does this vote mean for the future of Italy?
With us in our studio, we have Federica Bindi, a senior fellow at the Center for Transatlantic Relations at Johns Hopkins University. Mattia Torelli is a deputy field director for the National Yes campaign. He joins us from Rome. Ignacio Corral is, hello, ciao, five-star movement politician and a member of the European Parliament. He joins us from Brussels. And Axel Kaiser, good evening, is a student at John Cabot University. He's also in Rome. So hello, everybody. Let me show you here Mattia's Twitter page. It says here, Io voto sì, I voted yes. And here you can see Mattia is smiling broadly. Mattia, how have you been today? How are you feeling?
Well, I haven't been smiling as I was in that picture, obviously. But in general, I think we have, we had a great campaign. We got more than 13 million votes. This is a huge number of Italians. We are proud to have ran a very positive campaign, a campaign that speaks about the issues. We think we missed a great opportunity to change Italy, as some of the guys that left a message before said. Italy could have been a more stable. We could have had more governability. You know, it would have been a great opportunity to change. This is the result. Democracy is democracy, so people have the power. So we accept the result. I am really proud of the job we've done, and I think in a lot of places we could change people's minds by speaking about the issues. From the other side, we got a smear campaign all the time directed to the Prime Minister, and so this is what we got.
Let me show you how the voters of Italy broke down. We had 40% who voted for yes for the referendum, and 59% said no. Ignacio, you were part of that 59%. Are you feeling victorious today?
Of course, I feel a victory, and we said for the very first day that this was not a political choice, but was about the Constitution, was about the balance of rights there are for Italian citizens and the balance between institutions. I think that Prime Minister Renzi has been very arrogant because he started his campaign, putting his face onto it. He was absolutely confident on winning it. And after all, Italian people understood that this reform was not about Italian people's priorities, but it was just about the power and giving more power to those who already are in power. So I think that this was a great victory for the Italian people. And of course, the Five-Star Movement has been campaigning hard we started this campaign against this reform during the summer. And we brought it until yesterday. So we are very satisfied. And now we ask for new election, because one of the problems of this reform that has been made by the government counting on a majority that has been declared as an unconstitutional one from the Constitutional Court. And it's important now to give Italian people a parliament that represents the will of Italian citizens with a new government.
Ignacio, I hear what you're saying there, and I want to pause on one of the things you said, because you mentioned that this was not necessarily a political choice that people made. There's someone who might push back on that. This is Cosimo on Twitter, who says, this was the most politicized referendum ever. Many people voted simply based on whether or not they liked Renzi. I think no will win, because we spoke to people before and after the vote. So that's one person's view. Another person sent us a video comment, and she had 3 different reasons why she said people might have voted no. Here's her 3rd reason. Have a listen.
I think the most alarming danger now is presenting the no front as homogeneous and compact. On the contrary, we can talk about 3 very different goals of the no voters. The 3rd position wanted to change first the electoral law and after that the constitutional law, because the combination of the both as they are now would concentrate too much power in the hands of only one winning party. So only analyzing these different positions could help finding answers to the needs of Italian voters.
So she warned against lumping all the no voters into one camp. You agree with that?
I absolutely agree. And I mean, there's certainly people who voted against Matteo, but it was Matteo himself who made the mistake of personalizing the referendum. And he should have known that whenever you personalize a referendum, it never turns out well for you.
Why do you think he did that? Do you think he really thought he was going to win?
Jim Messina advised him to do that. But also it's in Matteo's character to do that, for the good or for the bad. So, but I think that overall, the numbers, the huge number of people that turned out show that, in fact, people went out to vote against the reform of the Constitution, which was an ill reform. I mean, there were some benefit that would come out of the reform, but the cons were far outnumbering the yes. And if I would like to go back on what Mattia said. Of course, I'd been observing the campaign as an Italian, but an Italian living abroad, and I frankly didn't have the feeling that the Yes campaign went on the pros, on the institutional pros. It was a campaign on, I want to be an engineer, so I vote yes for the Constitution. And I think what was undervaluated here is that, that we knew that the Constitution the change was not a good change. And by pushing on the emotional side, it was more wrong than good. I mean, once you change the Constitution, as we know, it's hard to change it back.
So let me just check, Matteo, did you know that the referendum wasn't a perfect referendum, or were you fully behind it?
Well, I'm obviously fully behind the reform.
So what Federica says, that doesn't resonate with you at all?
No, definitely not.
Oh.
What international people should know is that we have been waiting for this reform for 30 years. And all the parties, including Five-Star Movement, said it was a very good idea and they would have been behind it. And we have waited 30 years when we finally got this huge chance to change.
So let me just check. Let me just check, because we've only got so much time here.
No,
Ignacio, did you think that constitutional reform, is that a good idea? Like just a basic idea of let's change things up, let's shake things up a little bit in Italy, the way things are run or not run?
You know, the things that we've been saying about the constitutional reform is that this was not the priority for the country. And we stopped the institutional work, the legislative work, to be in campaign for this referendum, and that was not about the needs of Italian people. There was nothing about employment, nothing about fighting poverty, nothing about fighting corruption. It's just about balance of powers and institutional system that has nothing to do. This reform was very badly written and was, I come out from the political point of view that we can discuss for hours, and we see it from a technical point of view. When professors, when people working on the juridical sector read this reform, they found something that was going to complicate the political and institutional life of Italian people.
Take a breath for a moment. Let me just bring in Axel here. Axel, you've been waiting very patiently.
If I may, this idea that the reform was not what the Italian people needed right now is the main reason why nothing was done in this country for so long. Because whenever something gets proposed, then the answer is always, oh no, but there are bigger problems right now. And this happens regardless of the proposal. I thought it was a good reform, which would have addressed the biggest issue that I think there is in Italy, which is stagnation. Nothing ever changes. Most people who are in power have the interest of keeping everything
today and yesterday.
Can I?
It's a good point, isn't it? That's a good illustration of your point. Is nothing ever changes.
Actually, they say is everything has to change for nothing to really change, and this is exactly what the Constitution was about. I mean, it was a massive change. 49 articles, so a third of the articles were changed in a very unclear manner. I mean, frankly speaking. As a scholar, once you started studying it, there was no way you could support it. If you were, regardless of who you supported, and it was far too wide, badly written, and it would have not simplified the system.
Far too wide, badly written,
Matteo.
It's full of professors that said it was a very good reform. I've read it. I understood it.
Lucky
it's
you,
not so
you are one of the few.
And yeah, thank you. I've studied law, probably.
I did it also. I studied law.
I know you did. Not like Luigi Di Maio, probably. He couldn't manage to study.
Gentlemen, get to the point. Actually, no, stop talking. I want to bring in Malika. Hold tight for a moment. As people who studied the law argue amongst themselves, what's the community saying?
I actually want to play a video comment we got from someone named Matteo. Matteo has thoughts on how this leaves politics in Italy right now. Have a listen to what he told us.
In my opinion, Italy has lost a great chance to gain stability. We will not have another opportunity to make our institutional system more efficient for many years to come. The main issue is the political stability. We can't change government every 2 years and rely on a hung parliament. The no victory sends a negative message to the European Union. It spreads a message of disintegration, and the most likely alternative to the Democratic Party will be for now a provisional government. But I'm really concerned about the populist five-star movement, which is showing a total lack of skills and experience in governing Rome, is Russian-friendly, and has no credible candidate for Prime Minister.
So Matteo is the president of a Yes Committee, or was the president of a Yes Committee, and also a member of the Prime Minister's Democratic Party. So that gives the context for him. But Ignacio, what do you say about his criticisms on the five-star movement?
I have to see it with a smile, of course, because if if the attack of the five-star movement, it's about governing Rome, we have to explain to people who are listening to us that Rome has been devastated from the parties of the left and of the right that have stolen whatever could be stolen from that city, and that five-star movement has arrived just 5 months ago, just a few months ago, and is trying to figure out how to get the city back on the way that it deserves, because we're talking about one of the most beautiful cities in the world that has been destroyed by corruption led by both the major
Ignacio,
parties in Italy.
isn't the mayor of Rome from the five-star movement?
Yes, but she's the mayor of Rome. She's been elected 5-6 months ago.
Yeah.
So just give her time to
Please,
show
more time.
if it's possible to put a big city like Rome back on the stage that it deserves. But something that it's important to say, it's that it's absurd to accuse those who never governed, who never stole anything about the problem that are in this country. And this reform had nothing to do with getting the country better, because there were nothing that could really ease the institutional system in Italy. This was just something that has been
gender equality for the parliament, transparency for the government, for example,
but
making
laws. The campaign.
No?
Listen, Matteo, the campaign that Matteo Renzi led during this month was about reducing the number of senators, reducing the cost of politics, and getting
for years.
Let me get to the point, and having a faster legislative system. But what we have to explain to people who are listening to us is that whenever there is the political will to have a bill passed, the bill is passing in a very, very rapid way. We can make a lot of examples. So we can talk about, for example, Boccadutri law. We can make the examples of Fornero bill. These are all laws that pass through the Senate and the Chamber.
Yes, let me just play you a clip.
2 days, in 2 weeks, in which there was no problem
This
of
is lie.
speed
This
of
is a
both
lie,
chambers.
sorry.
Gentlemen, take
it's not
take a pause for a moment.
Listen, Mattia,
Gentlemen, take a pause for a moment. Gentlemen,
can I ask a question?
Gentlemen,
Can I ask a question?
Tutti, please.
Excuse.
Per favore.
Can I ask a question?
No, hold on one second. I just want to bring in something for our audience who are watching. And this is Prime Minister Renzi, he's still currently Prime Minister, talking in November about what he hopes for the country. Have a listen to this.
I think this referendum can mark real change in Italy. This government was born to bring change and was formed to carry out institutional reforms. If Italian citizens reject these reforms, we will have to reassess the political situation.
So, gentlemen, the reason I stop you is because I want to push on a little forward. I want to push on to see where we can go to next. Axel, help me out with this. Reform, change. Where does Italy go from this point onwards, Axel?
That's a very good question. Well, first of all, there's to resolve the issue of who's going to govern. And that is a big, big issue because lots of people, including the five-star movements, are asking for elections right now. And I'd be curious, for instance, knowing from Ignazio how they expect to be able to go to elections right now when there is the budget law for 2017 to approve. There is a different electoral system in the chamber and in the Senate. And also, may I add, that they call for new elections right now using the Italicum, which is the electoral law at the chamber, which is a law Grillo himself defined the fascist law, which is here in Italy, considering our recent history, really the worst thing you can say about something, it being fascist. And now they're ready to use this law with the new elections. May I add, probably because right now they would be the ones to benefit most from it. But I still feel that's very hypocritical. No? Once something is defined as fascist, and then, no, sure, we'll use it.
Well, technically, if you want to have elections, there are two ways. The quickest way would be for the Constitutional Court, which has the current law under examination, to declare it unconstitutional, which is clearly the case because it was thought for after the reform. And then the moment the court declares that unconstitutional, then the former law, it goes into effect again, and we can vote with that. And so technically, it would be relatively easy to call for a vote fairly soon, and while still having the time to approve the budget. And given the experience of 2011, I think that it would be better to have elections.
If I may, Di Maio today said they wouldn't vote on budget law.
Well, they take the responsibility to the voters then. Let the voters decide. I don't think that by carrying on a fourth non-elected government, once again, would be good for the country.
There's no elected government. Explain it to international people that don't know that.
I mean, there is no the current government, the previous one led by Enrico Letta, and the previous one led by Monti. They were all based by parliamentary majority. None of them were directly elected by the people. Now, I think that if Matteo goes on with the idea of resigning, which is a good decision, the parliament try to pass the budget law, and whoever votes against it will take the responsibility for voting against it, and then we give the word to electors. I think that's the best way to go. And in any case, we can't go any farther than 2018, so it's 1 year. So it's not that it makes that big difference. And giving the electors the right to decide is always the best decision.
So I like that you ended on that, on giving electors the right to decide. Our community, though, is saying whether elections happen now or they happen in 2017, nothing will really change. This is Samantha on Twitter. She says, the impact, first of all, that we'll see will be celebrations that the Prime Minister is gone, and then maybe temporary technical cabinet till elections, and then the usual chaos. Mattia, is that how you view this? Same as usual, nothing's changed.
So what I see is that, first of all, there's no elected government. We have had in Italy 63 governments in 70 years. So this is what instability means. And this is exactly what this reform was trying to address. So what happened is that we had from neo-fascists to five-star to neo-communist to all the parties against Renzi. They simply voted no for a specific political interest, because these are the points that all of them raised. And secondly, there are some points we haven't been talking about of the reform, like gender equality in the parliament, like transparency for the government. I'm sorry, here everything went dark because we are dismounting.
Mattia, you're insulting electors. You're just assuming that all the electors voted against Matteo. No. You have to take, and especially given the numbers, you have to come to terms with the fact that people voted against the constitutional reform. That was the question. Do you share this constitutional reform or you don't?
I know. Let me
just like you shouldn't say that everyone who voted no voted against Renzi, you can't assume that anyone who voted no voted on the merit of the reform.
I said there were people who voted against Matteo, but also people and lots of people who voted against the reform, though they support Matteo. It was a wrong reform for many people, and the numbers show that.
It was part of the Democratic Party also.
Yeah.
Let me show you something here. This is Matteo Renzi's Twitter page, and the last tweet that he sent out, he's kind of busy right now. 1,000 difficult but beautiful days. Thank you, everybody. Viva Italia. And then there's basically a combination of his 2.5 years that he was Prime Minister. If you actually had to sum up how he ended his term, what would you say?
That he was, I'm afraid to say, arrogant. He led the campaign in a wrong way. Had he just stick to the point, he might have got the result he wanted. But just by putting enormous pressure on people, saying, if you don't vote yes, Armageddon will happen. People are not stupid, so it's actually, I think it's actually a very good day for Italy.
You're a fan of Prime Minister
I'm a very strong supporter since a long time ago, and I still support him. But I still think this reform was wrong. And we have to distinguish this. And I think it would have been bad for the country to have reform that would have had a Senate that wouldn't work at all.
So here's someone who will disagree with you. Ricardo says, to be honest, these reforms have been necessary for ages in Italy. This was not a referendum on Matteo Renzi. On the other hand, though, Nocturnal Press says all Italians want reform and change. The proposed reform is not what the country needs and will not solve Italy's problems.
Now, you may remember that in next year had a question, and I said, hold on to your question. He's holding on to his question until we get to the post show. Stream.aljazeera.com. Come online and you'll find out what Ignacio had to say in this discussion, plus all of our other guests. We're talking about Italy's referendum. Where to next? At stream.aljazeera.com. See you online. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hello everybody, we're talking about what's next for Italy after the country voted no about changing its constitution in its recent referendum. Ignacio, you had a question. What was your question?
Yeah, that was related about something that we were debating before, and it was about the political will and the real simplification that Matteo Renzi was claiming with this reform. The question that I wanted to ask to Mattia, we were talking about that, is how long did it take to approve the Boccadutri law, which was a law by which the parties took some other money of electoral refunds. So how long did it take? And this passed through Senate and Chamber.
Right. It took not very long, like Fornero law. These were executive orders.
One day.
They were, right. They were converted into law. So what happens in Italy, like with normal bills, they go normally through the House and the Senate, and then if the Senate changes even one single word, it goes back to the House and then to the Senate and back
Mattia,
and forth.
this is, I'm sorry, but this is the way it used to work. You know that most of the work is done on committees, and nowadays legislation is approved much quicker than it used to be done before.
But the question was
this is not what the Constitution asks for.
So this is now, guess, if I could just sum this up from somebody sitting outside of Italy right now, this is now. What about the way forward? What happens next?
This is now it's definitely in the president's court, the ball, and the president asked, my understanding is that the president priority would be to keep Matteo in place, but after
how is that your understanding? Where do you get that understanding from?
Well, a little bit knowing the president, that is a risk-adverse person, and you know, little signals. I think the priority of a large part of the political class is to make sure that the Five-Star Movement never get to government, and I think, you know, we have to come to terms in Italy with the fact that sometimes the party we support rules, sometimes it doesn't, and it's up to the others to do it. And so if they win, they will have a chance. If they don't, they won't. And we have to be more relaxed about this. So I have a feeling the president will want to have a caretaker government for as long as possible. I don't think it's in Matteo Renzi's interest. I think it's in Matteo Renzi's interest to go to the opposition as soon as possible.
Is he done politically? Is he over?
I mean, it depends on what he does. If he accepts to stay as a caretaker government, then it's done. He's never going to win again. Never, ever. And and then in 2018, Grillo will win. I can put my hand on fire on this. If he, as he does, sticks to, as he did so far, stick to the fact that he's going to resign, he goes with the party at the opposition, then when the election will come, whether it's this spring or the following one, he can play the card of saying, I was the one who wanted to change the country, change the constitution, they didn't allow me. So it's really very much whether he will fall into vanity of being in power for so long or not, and whether the president will force. But you know, whether people like it or not, at the latest, in 1.5 years, we're going to have elections. We have to face that.
So then what happens at those elections is kind of the topic of discussion online. Here's a video comment from someone you saw a little bit earlier in the show. This is Adriano Romano. Here's another comment he gave us. Have a listen.
Mr. Renzi approved himself a very short statement by resigning. He gave up at the time of Hermes and left the country in a much worse condition than when he began. We are headed now to elections after a snap transition government. Our stability is undisputed, but our country needs a very swift political change.
So the country needs political change. Do you actually see that happening, Axel, when the elections come, whenever that is?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I do think that if we go to elections soon, then the Five-Star Movement will win. So that is absolutely political change. I would argue that it's not for the best, rather the opposite, but it is change nonetheless.
What change would you like to see?
That's a very good question. I don't particularly like I don't particularly like Renzi himself. I thought the reform was good, which is why I voted for it. But I do think that the five-star movement is absolutely unprepared to govern. And I do think that Rome is a great example of that, because well, what Ignazio said is true, that the city was devastated from previous governments. Part of governing is also being able to fix that. And arguably, Italy as a country is also in a pretty bad state. So why should we trust that they could do better on a state level than they're doing on a city level? Also considering that, true, Raggi was elected only 5 months ago, but in 5 months she barely was able to make a city council. So I don't have much confidence on the ability of the five-star movement to govern. What would their program be? Who would the premier be? The prime minister? Would it be Di Maio? Would it be Di Battista? This is not something that can be rushed. I would like to see a program to know what they would like to do. All I know for now is that from a declaration Di Maio made, that they would like to give a referendum on the euro, which is something I would argue should not be discussed in a referendum, because it's an issue too complicated to be asked as a simple yes or no question, like it was in the Brexit. So, yeah, there will be political change, definitely, if we go to elections. I don't think it will be for the best, though.
All right, guests, we can continue. I believe that Ignazio said we could talk about this for hours. We could, but we don't have hours, so I'm just going to say thank you very much to you. Have another question, Ignazio? There's more?
No.
This is why you have an
I just wanted to say one thing.
This is why you have an EU Parliament, because you can talk to your heart's content. What were you going to say before I said goodbye? What were you going to say?
Can I say one thing? That we can say that Matteo Renzi finally, eventually, kept one promise. He resigned after 3 years of being a prime minister and not keeping one single word. He kept for
that
one.
That is mean of you. That is unfair and mean of you.
We have to see. We have to see if he will resign, because it's not official yet. We have to wait for official communication. But if it happens to be out of the government, it's the first time that Matteo Renzi keeps his word. So it's something good for Italian people if we have election and we change government and we put the priority of this country on the table, and we're talking about a bill against corruption, a bill against poverty, and a bill to support small and medium enterprise, which is the heart of this country. This is something that we've been working hard for, and something that we want to do.
This is a party that is led by a comedian and
the next election
was not
with the new
able
parliament
to get a law degree. These are the people they want to put in charge of my country. I think we deserve better than that.
Mattia, you're doing the same mistake that the Democratic Party did
over
here.
Truth. Isn't that the truth?
Did over here in the US. Never underestimate the opponent. If I were the president,
I never underestimate the president.
I would just give a mandate to the parties who supported the no to form a caretaker government, and we'll go from there and see what they can do.
Right.
And then
agree.
elections.
I was just explaining to our international audience, as they're not Italians, that this party, the 5-star, was founded by a comedian, and the leader they want to have as prime minister is a guy who wasn't able to finish his law degree. And I'm saying that in my ideal country, in a great democracy, everything is based on merit, and a person who wasn't able to get a law degree, as we both thought. So I don't think it should be prime. It's so easy.
What's the merit of Verdini and Renzi? I mean, we can choose a prime minister. Asking people, you normally, we have been used to have prime minister chosen by the CEO of some banks, of some financial institution, especially from outside Italy. This is what's happening in our country, and this is what Renzi has been working for. So, I mean, I will be happy to see someone who will be working for the good of people. The 5-star movement is something new, something made of young people who doesn't have to go to a bank or to the Verdini.
Look, I would just like to say one thing on which I think we can all agree and close it with this.
I hope we can all agree. Usually when someone says, I want to say one thing that we could all agree.
No, there is one thing we can all agree on,
really?
I believe. That the very high turnout of the people in the voting booth is a sign that Italy has a functioning democratic system and people are interested in politics. And I think this was a very, very positive element, the very high turnout. And I think we can all agree on that.
Okay, let me just check. Let me just do a quick referendum. Does everybody agree on that?
I do.
Yes, of course. I do.
Excellent. We have 100% yes on
Yes.
that. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure having you debating, discussing on today's stream. Take care.